Hello, friends. Welcome to the 12th episode of Season 2 of the Schoolyard Podcast, brought to you by School Specialty. I'm your host, Nancy Chung, a fun-loving teacher and content creator, also known as Fancy Nancy in 5th on social media, and I'm thrilled that you're here. A special shout out to School Specialty, who offers essential educational supplies and complete learning environment solutions to help you transform more than classrooms. This is the Schoolyard Podcast, a podcast by educators for educators where the magic of learning unfolds. On today's episode, we're talking about creativity. I've seen countless students' eyes glaze over during traditional lectures, but throw in a surprising twist or a creative activity, and suddenly the whole classroom comes alive. Creativity in teaching isn't just about making lessons fun, and it isn't just an artistic skill. It's about breaking down the invisible walls that separate students from real learning. It's also a powerful problem-solving tool that teaches students to think flexibly, approach challenges with innovation, and understand that learning is a dynamic, engaging process limited only by the boundaries of one's imagination. When we approach education as a dynamic, exploratory process instead of a rigid set of facts to memorize, we give students permission to think differently, to ask wild questions, and to see the world as a playground of possibilities. It's about showing kids that learning isn't something that happens to them, but something they can actively shape and enjoy. Ultimately, creativity is the bridge that transforms education from a chore into an adventure, helping students discover not just what to think, but how to think. Our guest today is James Wells, who is the Education Content Manager at Crayola. James brings creative energy and leadership to speaking presentations, inspiring participants to think differently. Dedicated to supporting arts in schools, he has worked closely with teachers and administrators across the U.S. and internationally. As host of the digital content series, Creativity Tips, and vice chair of Crayola's Diversity and Inclusion Council, he champions art education. Previously, the Fine Arts Instructional Advisor for Shelby County School District in Memphis, James was named 2022 Tennessee Art Educator of the Year. He remains actively involved in art education as past president of Tennessee Art Education Association, board trustee with the National Art Education Foundation, and advisory board member of Art Education Partnership. Wow, we're so excited to have him here. Welcome to the Schoolyard, James.
Hello, thank you, Nancy. So good to be here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be talking about creativity today. Would you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your role as an educator and art administrator, and now as the education content manager at Crayola?
Okay, so without the risk of being repetitive here, because you gave the intro into what I do, I would like to just focus on, if okay, the work that I do at Crayola, and that is to bring the joy and the love of creativity to everyone. And it happens in many ways. We have digital programs that we develop and design to engage our educators, students, and families.
Hmm.
One of the series that I'm super proud of is Creativity Tips, where in 2 minutes or less, bring creative content through hands-on learning to the end user. So that's something that I do, and I'm proud to do at Crayola. And then, of course, I have the pleasure of helping to design and write content that will go into the hands of teachers, into the classrooms of teachers, and I guess help to broaden the understanding of creativity to any and everyone. So it's a pleasure to be here to speak with you.
Sounds
And
like a fun job.
it's a lot of fun. It's very colorful, as you can imagine.
Uh-huh.
And having opportunities like this to speak with
Mhm.
you here today about the joys of creativity and what it truly means for our educators, students, and families. I'm just thrilled to be able to share that with you today.
Awesome. So when you were an art instructor, art educator, what grade level did you teach?
Yes, so yeah, that's a very good question. I taught middle school. and
Oh,
high school students,
uh-huh.
and I absolutely loved it. Middle school is, as you know, that very impressionable age. I'm a
Uh-huh.
father that currently has a middle schooler, so
Oh,
I
you
know
know.
the importance
Hmm.
of that level there. But yes, so the expression I think cut my teeth, if you will, in the middle school classroom, instructing kids, and in the summer times I would instruct high school kids and helping them to kind of navigate and think about art as a career. So I
Hmm.
did that. And then after coming out of the classroom, I navigated, I guess this wasn't in the bio, but I was a museum educator.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was an opportunity to bring what I gained in the classroom into the museum world in
Hmm.
helping the larger public to see connections between science, history, and the arts there. And from the museum, I moved into state government where I managed arts grants
Hmm.
for schools and nonprofit organizations and helping to bridge and make connections and support arts education and instruction across the state.
Hmm.
And then, as you see here, as an administrator, I guess those are all administrator roles, but
Hmm.
prior to Crayola, I did serve as one of the fine arts administrators where I helped to support and design curriculum and professional development to
Hmm.
support in-class instructions for our teachers
Hmm.
here in Memphis, Shelby County.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, before I went into multiple subject credential, I was actually an art education major.
Ooh, there we go.
Yeah, so I have my degree in art education, but I quickly learned that whenever there are budget cuts, art is the first department to get cut. And I was like, okay, this is not looking good for my future. So I decided to go into elementary teaching, like, multiple subject elementary. So I'm a fifth grade teacher, and I bring art into everything I do. So I know, like, before we started recording, we're talking about how busy the season is. I have so many projects going, and I'm like, and I love it because this is my specialty. But all the teachers are just pulling their hair out right now because it's, like all creativity and all the art instruction, like doing all the art, like the holiday crafts. I think it's a little challenging for some, but I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so important. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, you have your art education background, but art making isn't exclusive to the arts classroom. Students should
Hmm.
have that opportunity to have that hands-on immersive
Hmm.
experience in all classrooms. So it's a joy for me to hear
Hmm.
that you are bringing that learning into the classroom where
Yeah.
students, let's face it, this is where they spend most of their day in most
Hmm.
schools and districts. When arts programs are present, they're going
Hmm.
to, in an elementary setting, visual art class 1 day a week.
Oh, that's not enough.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and you think about that, that's 36 classes a year if we're lucky, right?
Right. Right.
So it's important to give students those hands-on experiences.
Mhm.
And I know we'll probably end up talking about this a bit later here in our conversation, but I just wanted to highlight that and thank you for bringing that into
Mhm.
your students'
Every
experience.
subject, yeah, every subject, hopefully every grade level.
Yes.
But okay, so I heard, well, not I heard, but you were the Educator of the Year winner, which is a huge, huge recognition and accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank
Um,
you.
what did that mean to you to be recognized as Educator of the Year?
It felt so good to know that because it was totally unexpected, right?
Oh, uh-huh.
We go into this profession, as you know, not for the salaries or the accolades or any of that, but we go into it because we want to make an impact.
Mm,
And that's always been my North Star in this work and any work for that matter that I'm engaged in. But when you think about cultivating the next generation of citizens, right? And actually, next is now is something that we
mhm,
say in Memphis, like it is happening right now.
mhm,
And leading with that, I guess, got the attention of those who make the decisions and give the accolades, and it led to being the art educator of the year, and that was
mhm,
truly an honor for me. And just thinking about all of the students and colleagues that I've worked alongside. I feel like it's a shared award
Mhm.
because everyone that's been on this journey with me, they helped to get me to this point where I've made a sizable impact that led to this honor, this recognition.
Yeah, that's a huge honor. Congratulations.
In a world of digital distractions, how do you see more hands-on and immersive creative tools like those that Crayola products helping teachers reignite that spark of imagination in today's classrooms?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and as you pointed out, one of the things we know about hands-on tools is that it actively engages students with the physical material of paper, crayons, paint, scissors, like you name it. And
Hmm.
that's important because that activates our senses, right? Whether it's
Hmm.
smell, touch, and the byproducts of using these physical materials, Crayola tools, is that it leads to exploration and experimentation, which activate and spark imagination.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
you think about getting a blank sheet of paper, there's nothing there. So it's something that activates and sparks in your mind that's going to create this magical world
Hmm.
on this sheet of paper, right? Whereas, as you pointed out,
Hmm.
you know, uh, digital distractions is sort of a passive way of learning, of receiving information, right? We know that the simulations and algorithms in these digital distractions are already pre-planned, so it doesn't require much effort or imagination by the end user. And
Hmm.
we know at Crayola, and the research tells us that, hands-on tools and instruction is evergreen. And fortunately,
Hmm.
as you pointed out, being, a fifth grade educator that's bringing hands-on instruction, creative instruction in your classroom, we're seeing teachers use this method to actively uh, get students involved in creating and activating their imagination. And most recently, this example is coming to mind is my daughter, who is an elementary age student, participated in a vocabulary parade. And
Oh, I've
yeah,
seen those.
they're so much fun.
Hmm.
And what I absolutely loved is while they needed to, and her word was originality. She was
Okay, I was
paired
going to
with,
ask what her word was. Okay.
so her
Oh.
word was originality, and they did them in pairs with students they had to decide on the two words that were similar but not the same.
Hmm.
And her partner's word was artistic, and she chose
Oh.
originality.
Uh-huh.
And what I absolutely loved about this vocabulary parade was the instructions were for students to create a costume that embodied their word.
Mm.
So, she had this blank t-shirt, and we, grabbed materials that were just around the house,
Hmm.
and we went and shopped and got some other, materials to help embellish
Hmm.
the design and everything. But what I absolutely loved was like this really embodied her word, right? This was truly an original t-shirt, and that
Right.
was something that I reminded her was,
Hmm.
this is one of one. No one else in the world will
Yeah.
have this shirt,
Uh-huh.
or in the history of the world, because this
Uh-huh.
is your originality.
Hmm.
And I, definitely wanted to emphasize the point that, this by doing this, it sparked your imagination. It's your original thoughts,
Hmm.
and that is the benefit of hands-on, immersive, creative instruction.
Right.
So that brings joy to me to know that,
Hmm.
this is evergreen. And before there was ever a digital device,
Hmm. Yes. Hmm.
there was
Right.
our hands-on creative tools, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So, uh, so when all else fails, when the battery runs down, that
Hmm.
crayon, that marker, that paper will be there waiting on you
Hmm.
to bring it to life, to activate
Yeah.
it. So certainly continue to do it. Teachers, reignite, spark that imagination in your kids.
Uh-huh. I know it's so interesting to watch the kids react to a blank sheet of paper. If like the more freedom you give them, they don't know what to do when they have so much freedom to say, here, create something. They're like, what are we supposed to do? I'm like, make something, create something. And they're like, yeah, but can you give us some kind of like a guideline, some kind of directions? Like, how should we start? It's up to you. And some kids just, they just dive right in, and some kids freeze. And some of my perfectionist students, they're scared to make that first mark, whether it's like a marker or paint or crayon. And so, like I want to let them know, like, there's no right way to create something, a right way to be original. Just do it. And I think the more we practice, more we do that, the better they will feel about exploring and creating.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes. And that's the key. The more we create the opportunities and the
Hmm.
conditions for these experiences to happen. So, for those students who may struggle with that, right? Because there are students who are perfectionists and have a
Hmm.
fear of seeing the blank page.
Hmm.
One of the things that I would offer is, scribble on the sheet of paper,
Oh, uh-huh.
right? Scribble
Hmm.
and then go back into the design or the scribble to try to find images, right?
Hmm.
So that was actually a creative warm up that I would do with my art
Hmm.
students for
Hmm.
those who may have had creative blocks or we just wanted to activate that right side of the brain
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
during the school day, many of them, for most of the day, a better part of the day, they're living on the left side of the brain
Hmm.
and we
Hmm.
want to activate that right side. So it's like scribble on the sheet of paper. We're not trying to make anything. And that's part of the fear for a lot of students. They feel like they have to make something that looks like something. It's like, no, just scribble on the paper.
Uh-huh.
Now I want you to look back into those scribbles and see if your eyes can start to pull together images. And I want you to outline those images of the
Hmm.
various things that you see within the scribbles. So
Hmm. And they turn out so different, every single one of
do.
them.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
they do. They see so many different things. So,
Hmm.
that's one example to help for those who may have students who have that fear. Just have them scribble or ball the paper up and then have them like trace the outlines of the
Oh.
scrunches of the paper
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
see what that turns out to be. So,
I love
there
that.
are many ways to help build those on-ramps because we know we're
Hmm.
not in the business of trying to trick kids into or setting them up for creative failures, right? We
Yeah.
want them to feel confident, and building
Hmm.
those ramps will certainly help that. Join over 6 million students around the globe for Crayola Creativity Week, January 27th through February 2nd, 2025. Sign up for free access to learning resources, celebrity videos, prizes, and shop our wide assortment of Crayola products at schoolspecialty.com/Crayola.
Self-expression helps students grow in all areas. It's why Saks Art Supplies are curated by art educators for art educators with one simple goal in mind: to inspire the artist in every student. Saks, available only at schoolspecialty.com.
I love that. And that just naturally leads into my next question. There are teachers and educators who are constantly seeking resources to cultivate and inspire creativity in their classrooms, and they don't know where to start. Can you share some information about Crayola Creativity Week and how educators can get involved?
Yes, absolutely. So Crayola Creativity Week is one of, I would have to say, the proudest programs that we have at the company.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who are not familiar with Crayola Creativity Week, it is a free, that's right, listening audience, free
Uh-huh.
week-long program that nurtures creativity in children. And teachers, educators receive, by signing up, they receive free resources, downloadable resources with all sorts of content that has daily themes. So during this week, students will hear inspirational messages from celebrity guests. And
Mhm.
to kind of give you a peek into this year's guest, we have Matthew
Matthew
McConaughey.
McConaughey. I
Yes,
already
we
saw
do. Yes,
that.
yes, the
Uh-huh.
Matthew McConaughey who will be
Uh-huh.
speaking about life lessons. And then
Mm-hmm.
we have Henry Winkler
Mm-hmm.
from the very famous Happy Days and all
Mm-hmm.
the other stuff, the Fonz.
Mm-hmm.
Henry Winkler will be speaking about change and collaboration. And we have actor Max Greenfield who will speak about conquering fears,
Mm-hmm.
as well as very famous author, beloved author Mo Willems, who
Mm.
will be speaking about abstract thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a week long, 7 days. Every day we have a designated theme,
Mm-hmm.
and we're proud to again this year, by popular demand, we're proud to have NASA astrobiologists
Oh,
talk
uh-huh.
about the Europa Clipper mission
Yes,
and
uh-huh.
their search for habitable conditions on Jupiter's moon.
Uh-huh.
So we have a great lineup of guests, and then
Okay,
we
I'm gonna
like
have to,
there's
can I just like pause to like show you this that I have on my
oh my
desk right
gosh,
now?
you
And
have
it's
the
a
thinking sheets.
Poem for Europa, Flows Like Water, Thinking Sheets. So I have all these thinking sheets already printed out, ready to go for 2025.
There we go.
Great.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Oh, that's so good. So good
Mm-hmm.
to hear. And then, I want to highlight that we have an energy field assembly, a virtual assembly event that culminates the school week. And we have more names that you probably heard of. Jennifer Aniston will be a part of
Um,
the assembly.
I think I may have heard of her.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, right. And then we have Quinta Brunson, which if you haven't seen Abbott Elementary, like
Oh, yes,
Quinta
yes.
is,
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
yes. So Quinta Brunson is a part of it, and then we have dancers and athletes who
Uh-huh.
will explain how creativity guides them. So when is Creativity Week happening? I'm sure now the audience is they're on the edge
Mm-hmm.
of their seat. So Creativity Week happens January 27th through February 2nd,
Mm-hmm.
2025. So very soon. So I
Mm-hmm.
encourage you to sign up. And then one of the really neat things is, with Creativity Week, this program happens because of a lot of great partnerships and sponsors. And School Specialty is a sponsor of this year's program and will
Yay.
offer students, I'm sorry, not students, but educators
Teachers.
who
Uh-huh.
are students, early
Mm-hmm.
access to those thinking sheets. So there we go,
Yes.
Nancy. You have
Mm-hmm.
your early access to those thinking sheets, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
also be donating $500 in products themed
Oh,
around
wow.
collaboration for
Mm-hmm.
one lucky school winner. So this is a part of our daily giveaway. So again,
Wow.
uh, if you're listening here, sign up for Creativity
Mm-hmm.
Week. We have this free content, but School Specialty is offering lots of resources
Mm-hmm.
to support that. And then the last thing I want to highlight about this week, which I think is such a treat for our educators listening, is by signing up, you gain access to our Crayola Creativity Week style assessment tool. And
Mm-hmm.
teachers came to us when we were developing this program. We heard in our research that teachers and educators are interested in knowing their creative style,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're so pleased to announce with this year's program, teachers, by signing up, you'll receive access to this evidence-based tool that will help you to deepen your understanding of your creative style and preference
Mm-hmm.
and further demystifies the myth around creativity. We think that creativity, as you mentioned at the top of the program, it's
Mm-hmm.
not about how well you draw, how well you sing, how well you dance. It's
Mm-hmm.
a mindset. Creativity is about problem solving and so many other things. So sign up to
Mm-hmm.
understand now your creative style and preference.
Awesome. I'm a little curious. As you were talking about all these things that, whenever I meet anyone, I always, being a teacher, I'm always imagining them as a student. So I'm like sitting here watching you talk and listening to you talk. I'm like, I wonder how James was as a kid, as a student growing up. Have you always loved art?
Oh my gosh, yes. I think I was born with a pencil tucked behind my ear. I remember as a kid, I
Uh-huh.
would walk around with my pencil tucked, if you can
Uh-huh.
envision this, like this little kid. And, I have to say, I grew up on the other side of the tracks, ladies and gentlemen.
Mhm.
So I am sort of your typical, not middle class, low, kid.
Mhm.
And I grew up in a single parent home, and
Mhm.
I'm one of six kids. And my
Mm.
mother's is a musician,
Oh,
a
wow.
pianist. So we didn't have much, but she believed in supporting and cultivating my artistic gift. So imagine this little scrawny kid, pencil tucked behind his ear, and I would make my little sketchbooks by just taking computer paper
Oh.
and folding it in
Uh-huh.
half and stapling the paper because, you know, getting a sketchbook wasn't as affordable then.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
So, and I would draw every day on
Did you doodle on
everything.
did you doodle on like your tests and quizzes and paper like all the school
Oh,
papers?
Nancy, yes, Nancy, you're calling me out. So, Nancy, oh my gosh, Nancy, you're digging back in the. you're digging back in my memories here. I
Like I'm
remember.
I'm one of those too.
Yeah, so all right, Nancy, you are my friend here, and I'm going to share a story. So I remember actually, as a kid, so I was um, a very high achiever, straight A kid,
hmm
and Nancy, we're friends, right?
Oh,
I was
absolutely.
all right. So I was the straight A kid that would uh, get the N's and U's on my report card
Oh,
because
uh-huh.
I likely I wasn't challenged, right? I would finish the work in the first 5 minutes, and I would either try to talk or I would doodle on all of my work, and that was not the right thing to do. At least that's what I was told by
Mm-hmm.
my teacher at the time, and I grew out of it. I never grew out of my arts. That's something that
hmm
stuck with me, of course. But I was that kid, high
Yeah.
flyer, straight A, A's and
Uh-huh.
B's kid,
hmm
and I've always drawn. Like it's
Yeah.
second nature to me.
Well, even now, like if I'm sitting at church and I'm listening to sermons, or if I'm just doodling and like creating little patterns, and it helps me focus better. People think maybe I'm not paying attention, but I'm like I can focus and pay attention better when I'm actually doodling because it's like I don't know, it's that just works for me.
Yeah.
I have to multitask. Okay, so when being that artistic kid, like was there a moment or a special project that made you realize the transformative power of creativity and how does that memory influence the work as an educator and what you do now for Crayola?
Yeah. Wow. That's a really good question. Yeah, I've had a lot of God, it's hard to pinpoint a pivotal moment, but
Uh-huh.
one that comes to mind is actually I'm looking at a work of art here. One of the joys that I have even now today, uh, working at Crayola, and this is work that I do or volunteer. I'm an advisory board member for Scholastic's Art and Writing,
Oh, wow.
and
hmm
um, this is a competition or an organization that supports young student artists from middle school to high school, and they partner with local organizations throughout the country to help showcase the artistic gifts and talents of students through a juried
hmm
exhibition of student work, writing, and art, visual
hmm
art. And I'm looking at a piece right here in front of me from high school where I did really, really well. This was, if I'm not mistaken, the only competition that I was able to place in a
hmm
juried competition. And this happened
hmm
my senior year of high school. And I went to a creative performing arts middle school and high school. So
Oh,
highly
wow.
competitive,
hmm
but so supportive. And the reason why this Scholastics program sticks with me is because, and I hold on to it, this is 20 plus years later, 25 or
hmm
20, yeah, over 20 years later. And I still hold on to this work. And the gold keys that I received through this program is because my artwork was displayed in a museum. First time that ever happened.
Wow.
So I'm
Uh-huh.
seeing my artwork alongside professional artists.
hmm
And this this program was a springboard to me getting a full scholarship to college. I had a
Oh,
full ride
uh-huh.
through
Wow.
art.
Congratulations.
So,
Uh-huh.
oh, thank you so much. And that was a pivotal moment for me because this is where my creativity I felt was validated. And not to say that it wasn't leading up to that point, but for me in my memory, this is where I realized like, whoa, okay, I'm being recognized that I have this gift to be able to take this flat sheet of paper and give it dimension and voice because it's as just a paper as a standalone or a canvas,
hmm
it's just a canvas, but it's my creative voice and artistic gifts and talents that help this thing to speak and
hmm
speak for me when I'm not in the room.
hmm
So that led to a full scholarship, and that scholarship led me to teaching, and
hmm
teaching led me to Crayola. So this is
Wow.
the through line of how all of this
Yeah.
magic happens, and I'm able to bring all of that experience of the importance of nurturing creativity in students because I had some awesome educators, teachers who are still dear friends to this day,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that it's important to always reach back
Mm-hmm.
and pour into others because
Mm-hmm.
that was done for me. So Crayola allows me uh, to share
Mm-hmm.
that love, that passion for creativity through platforms like this, speaking with
Mm-hmm.
you today,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and through the programs that we create and design for educators all across the globe.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like some people, I don't know, like some people might not need the validation, but for some people it could be a very pivotal moment. Maybe if you're stuck in a fork in the road, do I continue with art? Do I not? And receiving that validation, like it provided you free college. I mean, that's huge. That's huge. But yeah, like when I told my parents I was going to go into art, I've always loved art, and my parents knew that I was very artistic, very creative, and they supported that. But my dad at the time was saying, you know what? You don't go to college for fun. You're not gonna you can't go into art for fun because you're not gonna have um a successful, and I think he measured success by like the monetary gains. And I
Yep.
think it's the old school mentality, like artists are always going to be starving. And he didn't know all the jobs that, like majoring in art would open up to. He didn't know. So he was
Mhm.
against this. He's like, if you study art, I'm not going to support you financially. And that was
Mhm.
his ultimatum. And I had a scholarship to Pasadena Art Center, which is a really great school here in California. And I was so proud of myself. So I went there for a semester, but it was so expensive. I
Yeah.
ended up transferring out and going into public school. But I think my parents always kind of regretted their decision and how they, dealt with that. And so my dad said, if you go back for your second master's, I'll pay for it. You can study art and I'll pay for it. And I was like, too late now, Dad. I'm like, just give me the cash. Just give me the cash. But not everyone is supportive, with art and all of that, or art as a career choice. But I'm so happy to hear that you went that route and you're so successful in doing that. So yay.
Yeah, and I have to say, because I'm so glad you mentioned your story because that is a story of lots of people that find themselves in the situation of thinking about, okay, what are what career options do I have in the
Hmm.
creative field? And the beauty, now this is sort of getting to our earlier question around, digital distractions and hands-on. One of the beauties that we're seeing in today's world is there has been this sort of mashup where digital and creative
Hmm.
have merged together and created so many opportunities. So, I would say today more than ever, it feels like it's endless. One of the
Hmm.
neat things with Creativity Week and working with NASA is there are artists that work for NASA.
Hmm.
From taking pictures of the many galaxies that we have in outer space, right? We're looking at the James Webb Telescope. That
Hmm.
all requires photographers and artists, or as we're looking at the various landscapes throughout the Earth,
Hmm.
they have storytellers that work for NASA. So the creative field is so broad now. This is more than ever a great opportunity to activate that creativity
Hmm.
and really see art as a viable career.
Right.
Yeah.
And my son is in the engineering field, like engineering and business, like corporate America.
Yep.
But I hear from him all the time too that these companies are looking for that creative mind,
Yep.
right? To humanize, humanize all of the computer aspect and all the technical aspect. They need the splashes of creativity everywhere in every industry.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Forbes
Yeah.
magazine, just as a quick stat there, because that's important to note. This was back in May of this year. Forbes magazine did a survey of CEOs
Hmm.
around the most important skill that they're looking for in their workforce. And over 90% of CEOs stated that creativity is the number one
Oh, yeah.
skill that
Hmm.
is essential for their workforce. So there we
Wow.
go. You're hearing it
Yeah.
from the business leaders.
Yeah.
Creativity
Right.
is supreme as it relates to the skill that's most needed for the workforce.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yep.
If you could send one message to every teacher in the country about the importance of nurturing creativity, what would that message be? And what do you want educators to understand that they might not be seeing right now? I know that's a big question. It's like a Miss Universe kind of a question, like, Miss
Yes.
America.
No, that is a big question. And I would say for teachers, the one big message about creativity is it is the secret ingredient uh, for future ready students. You heard me just say a few minutes ago about CEOs saying that creativity is the most important skill in the workforce.
Hmm.
And the only way that we can ensure students' future success is to nurture and cultivate that so that we are preparing them for their future. And we know that creativity does that.
Hmm.
Creativity helps to expand the mind, helps them to problem solve, see new solutions. And it's our job as educators to prepare students for their future and not their past.
Hmm.
So that's the importance of nurturing creativity. And I think Daniel Pink has said it, and a lot of creative experts and researchers from Daniel Pink to Richard Florida uh, saying that creativity is the currency of the future. Creativity unlocks doors
Wow. Hmm.
for students. It is currency. Um, and that can lead to physical currency or
Hmm.
relationships or many other things. It is currency that's helped to solve the world's biggest problems
Hmm.
since the beginning of time to today.
Hmm.
Creativity is currency, and we owe that to our students. And the
Wow.
beauty is,
Hmm.
educators are in position, the most important position, to help shape the minds of our future and to help shape our future.
Hmm. So we have a segment on our podcast called Tag Your It, where our listeners write in with a question and our guest answers them. Our question comes from Priscilla L, and her question is, what are some of your New Year's resolutions or goals? Are you a resolution person?
Yeah, I that's a good question. Thank you, Priscilla, for that question. And for the past few years, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this book that I've been reading, and I'm going back through and reading, and it's called Atomic Habits
Oh,
by
oh my
James
gosh.
Clear.
What an amazing book.
It is an amazing book.
Mm-hmm.
And the quote that sticks out to me from this book, and this is what sort of created this paradigm shift around resolutions and goals, is the quote is, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Mm,
So
that's deep.
I have sort of resigned from goal setting, if that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
and being more intentional in the everyday
Mm-hmm.
and creating systems that will lead to great goals,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because, and I think we all have them. And I would say I passively have goals, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
goals can feel so big. And if you don't hit the goal, then you feel deflated and
Mm-hmm.
defeated. But if we create the perfect system every day, you're going to automatically hit your goal, I think.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm focused on. That's sort of where my
Mm-hmm.
mind is right now,
Yeah.
focusing on those systems, those
Mm-hmm.
everyday things that will lead to the goal. And I think educators
Mm-hmm.
are equipped for that, right? We have big curriculum goals and standards, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have those, but it's the everyday routines and systems that you're putting in place
Mm-hmm.
that will lead to the goal.
Mm.
And perfecting those systems, I think, is what,
That's yeah.
for me, what's most important.
I think it was from that book where I learned like that, when you wake up, you make your bed and that sets your mind for, the day. And like, do you make your bed every day? Like first thing you wake up, you make your bed?
Make your bed. Yes, I do. Well, I have to say,
Okay.
I wait on I'm an early riser, so my wife
Mhm.
is still asleep, and I say
Okay.
early. Yeah, yeah. But I am very intentional in waking up and meditating, reading scripture, and going to the gym. Like these are daily systems and routines that I have in place, and
Mhm.
so that's something that I'm focused on is being successful in those everyday systems that
Mhm.
will lead to a successful, I believe, a
Sure.
successful year.
Awesome. Well, James, it's been so much fun just chatting with you. Like as you're talking, I'm just like smiling, going, "Oh gosh, I totally agree with you." Like, yes, yes, yes. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the Schoolyard podcast and just being so fun and so enjoyable to talk to. I hope all of our listeners can find you on social media. If you have a social media handle, we would love to follow you and see what kind of creative and original things you're doing too. But we want to thank you for being such an amazing guest, and we want to wish you a very happy new year.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Nancy. Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Schoolyard Podcast. Remember to pack your curiosity and meet us back in the schoolyard for our next episode. Tag, you're it. Now it's your turn to write in with a question, which we will answer here on the Schoolyard Podcast for our segment called Tag You're It. Tag us on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter at School Specialty and hashtag Schoolyard Tag You're It with a question that you want answered. One question will be selected per episode to be answered by our featured guest and myself. If your question is chosen to be answered on the podcast, we'll send you a very special Schoolyard Podcast t-shirt. Class dismissed.